Happy Thursday. Welcome back to today's Donkey Story Time. We have Ollie and Milo here with us today. I think Milo may be a little off camera, but I promise he's there. You'll see his ears pop in from time to time. Well, welcome back. Today we're going to go ahead and take a closer look back with Roald Dahl's story of James and the Giant Peach. If you remember where we had left off, we first got a little character development. We learned about some of the main characters in the story. We learned about James and some of the troubles in his childhood. We learned also about our two wicked aunts. Not wicked stepmothers, not wicked anything, witches, or anything like that here, but wicked aunts. So we have some wicked aunts in this story, Aunt Spiker and Aunt Sponge, who are quite the characters all in themselves. And we have a peach tree that, thanks to the man with the little green suit and his little green glowing gems, somehow that peach tree that never had a peach before now is growing one great, big, giant, enormous peach. So enormous, so groundbreaking that they actually have started to have visitors come from near and far to come and see. But unfortunately still, the aunts will not let James out to go see the other kids and to help out around there. Instead, he's on trash pickup, and that's all he gets to do. But not to worry, there's always a twist and turn or tumble in stories like this. It's coming. Chapter 9. Hungry and trembling, James stood alone out in the open, wondering what to do. The night was all around him now, and high overhead a wild white moon was riding in the sky. There was not a sound, not a movement anywhere. Most people, and especially small children, are often quite scared of being outdoors alone in the moonlight. Everything was so quiet, and the shadows are so long and black, and they keep turning into the strangest shapes that seem to move just as you look at them. And the slightest little snap of a twig makes you jump. James felt exactly like that right now. He stared straight ahead with large, frightened eyes, hardly daring to breathe. Not far away, in the middle of the garden, he could see the giant peach towering over everything else. Surely it was even bigger tonight than it even was before. And what a dazzling sight it was. The moonlight was shining and glinting on its great curving sides, turning them to crystal and silver. It looked like a tremendous silver ball lying there in the grass, silent, mysterious, and wonderful. And then, all at once, little shivers of excitement started running over the skin on James's back. Something else, he told himself. Something stranger than ever this time is about to happen to me again soon. He was sure of it. He could feel it coming. You know that feeling when you're just sure something's about to happen, but you don't quite know why? He's there. He's got that feeling. He looked around him, wondering what on earth it was going to be. The garden lay soft and silver in the moonlight. The grass was wet with dew, and a million dewdrops were sparkling and twinkling like diamonds around his feet. And now, suddenly, the whole place, the whole garden, seemed to be alive with magic. Almost without knowing what he was doing, as though drawn by some powerful magnet, James Henry Trotter started walking slowly toward the giant peach. He climbed over the fence that surrounded it and stood directly beneath it, staring up at its great, bulging sides. Not sure I would recommend that. A great big giant peach hanging off of a tiny little branch. I would not stand under it. But it's magical. Let's see what's happening. He put out a hand and touched it gently with the tip of one finger. It felt soft and warm and slightly furry, like the skin of a baby mouse. He moved a step closer and rubbed his cheek lightly against the soft skin. And then, suddenly, while he was doing this, he happened to notice that right beside him and below him, close to the ground, there was a hole in the side of the peach. Chapter 10. It was quite a large hole, the sort of thing an animal about the size of a fox might have made. James knelt down in front of it and poked his head and shoulders inside. He crawled on in. He kept on crawling. You picture this in your head, him crawling into the peach? This isn't just a hole, he thought excitedly. It's a tunnel. The tunnel was damp and murky, and all around him there was the curious bittersweet smell of fresh peach. The floor was soggy under his knees, the walls were wet and sticky, and peach juice was dripping from the ceiling. James opened his mouth and caught some of it on his tongue. It tasted delicious. He was crawling uphill now, as though the tunnel were leading straight toward the very center of the gigantic fruit. Every few seconds he paused and took a bite out of the wall. The peach flesh was sweet and juicy and marvelously refreshing. Sorry, a lot of longer words there. I got tongue-tied. Marvelously refreshing. Whew. He crawled on for several more yards, and then suddenly, bang! The top of his head bumped into something extremely hard, blocking his way. He glanced up instantly, and right there in front of them, there was a solid wall that seemed at first as though it were made of wood. He touched it with his fingers. It certainly felt like wood, except that it was very jagged and full of deep grooves. Pause to think about that for a second. He climbs into the peach. He's tunneling upward. He hits this wooden wall, but it's not really wood. It just feels like wood. What might it be there in the center of the peach? Do you have an idea? Okay, let's see. Good heavens, he said. I know what this is. I've come to the stone, the pit, in the middle of the peach. Then he noticed that there was a small door cut into the face of the peach stone. He gave it a push. It swung open. He crawled through it, and before he had time to glance up and see where he was, he heard a voice saying, "Look who's here!" And another one say, "We've been waiting for you!" Unexpected. James stopped and stared at the speakers, his face white with horror. He started to stand up, but his knees were shaking so much he had to sit down on the floor. He glanced behind him, thinking that he could bolt back into the tunnel the way he had come, but the doorway had disappeared. There was now only a solid brown wall behind him. Can you picture it? Picture it, Ollie? All right, chapter 11. James's large, frightened eyes traveled slowly around the room. The creatures, some sitting on chairs, others reclining on a sofa, were all watching him intently. Creatures, or were they insects? An insect is usually something rather small, is it not? A grasshopper, for example, is an insect. So, what would you call it if you saw a grasshopper as large as a dog, or maybe a mini donkey? You could hardly call that an insect, could you? There was an old green grasshopper as large as a large dog sitting on a stool directly across the room from James now. And next to the old green grasshopper, there was an enormous spider. And next to the spider, there was a giant ladybug with 9 black spots on her scarlet shell. Each of these 3 was squatting upon a magnificent chair. On the sofa nearby, reclining comfortably in a curled-up position, there was a centipede and an earthworm. On the floor in the far corner, there was something thick and white, and looked as though it might be a silkworm, but it was sleeping soundly, and nobody was actually paying attention to it. Let me give you the scene of those ginormous insects. Grasshopper, spider, we've got our centipede, our earthworm, our ladybug. Try to tip it so you can see that ladybug's a little hidden right there in the center. All right, you've got that scene. Just having a little party in the middle of the peach, you know, just an everyday, ordinary occurrence. Every one of these creatures was at least as big as James himself, and in the strange greenish light that shone down from somewhere in the ceiling, they were absolutely terrifying to behold. "I'm hungry," the spider announced suddenly, staring hard at James. "I'm famished," the old green grasshopper said. "So am I," the ladybug cried. The centipede sat up a little straighter on the sofa. "Everyone's famished," he said. "We need food." 4 pairs of round, black, glassy eyes were all fixed upon James. I don't like the sounds of this. There was a long pause and a long silence. The spider, who happened to be a female spider, opened her mouth and ran a long black tongue delicately over her lips. "Aren't you hungry?" she asked suddenly, leaning forward and addressing James herself. Poor James was backed up against the far wall, shivering with fright and much too terrified to answer. "What's the matter with you?" the old green grasshopper asked. "You look positively ill." "He looks as though he's going to faint at any second," the centipede said. "Oh my goodness, the poor thing," the ladybug cried. "I do believe he thinks it's him we're wanting to eat." There was a roar of laughter from all sides. Oh dear, they said. "What an awful thought. You mustn't be frightened." The ladybug said kindly, "We wouldn't dream of hurting you. You are one of us now. Don't you know that? You are one of the crew. We are all in the same boat." "We've been waiting for you all day long," the old green grasshopper said. "We thought you were never going to turn up. I'm glad you made it." "So cheer up, boy, cheer up," the centipede said. "And meanwhile, I wish you'd come over here and give me a hand with these boots. It takes me hours to get them all off by myself." Centipede ring boots, that is an awful lot of feet to try to get all those boots off of. Chapter 12, the last one for today. James decided that this was most certainly not a time to be disagreeable, so he crossed the room to where the centipede was sitting and knelt down beside him to help. "Thank you so much," the centipede said. "You are very kind." "You have a lot of boots," James murmured. "I have a lot of legs," the centipede answered proudly, "and a lot of feet, 100 to be exact." "There he goes again," the earthworm cried, speaking for the first time. "He simply cannot stop telling lies about his legs. He doesn't have anything like 100 of them. He's only got 42. The trouble is that most people don't bother to count them. They just take his word for it. And anyway, there's nothing marvelous, centipede, about having a lot of legs." Does make sense. The earthworm might not feel the same about that. "Poor fellow," the centipede said, whispering in James's ear. "He's blind. He can't see how splendid I look." "In my opinion," the earthworm said, "the really marvelous thing is to have no legs at all and be able to walk just the same." "You call that walking?" cried the centipede. "You're a slitherer, that's all you are. You just slither along." "I glide," said the earthworm primly. "You are a slimy beast," answered the centipede. "I am not a slimy beast," the earthworm said. "I am a useful and very much loved creature. Ask any gardener you like. And as for you, I am a pest," the centipede announced, grinning broadly and looking around the room for approval. "He's so proud of that," the ladybug said, smiling at James, "though for the life of me, I can't understand why." "I am the only pest in this room," cried the centipede, still grinning away, "unless you count old green grasshopper over there. But he is long past now. He is too old to be a pest anymore." The old green grasshopper turned his huge black eyes upon the centipede and gave him a withering look. Give me your best withering look. Not a very nice thing to say. Especially the dear old green grasshopper. Oh, goodness. "Young fellow," he said, speaking in a deep, slow, scornful voice, "I have never been a pest a day in my life. I am a musician." "Hear, hear," said the ladybug. "James," the centipede said, "your name is James, isn't it?" "Yes." "Well, James, have you ever in your life seen such a marvelous, colossal centipede as me?" "I certainly haven't. You either, Ollie? Nobody has. Yeah, absolutely." "I certainly haven't," James answered. "How on earth did you get to be like that?" "Very peculiar," the centipede said. "Very, very peculiar indeed. Let me tell you what happened. I was messing about in the garden under the old peach tree, and suddenly a funny little thing, a little green thing, came wriggling past my nose. Bright green it was, and extraordinarily beautiful, and it looked like some kind of tiny stone or crystal." "Oh, but I know what it was," cried James. "And it happened to me too," said Ladybug. "And me," Miss Spider said. "Suddenly, there were little green things everywhere. The soil was full of them. I actually swallowed one, the earthworm declared proudly. So did I, the ladybug said. I swallowed 3, the centipede cried. But who's telling the story anyway? Don't interrupt. It's too late to tell stories now, the old green grasshopper announced. It's time to go to sleep. I refuse to sleep in my boots, the centipede cried. How many more do you think there are to come off, James? I think I've done about 25 so far, James told him. Then that leaves 82 to go, said Centipede. 22, not 80, shrieked the earthworm. He's lying again. The centipede roared with laughter. Stop pulling the earthworm's leg, the ladybug said. This sent the centipede into hysterics. Pulling his leg, he cried, wriggling with glee and pointing at the earthworm. Which leg am I pulling? Can you tell me that? Now, just to make sure you understand that part, when someone says they're pulling their leg, you know that usually means, don't joke, don't give me a hard time. But of course, earthworm, no legs to pull, even if it is a figure of speech. James decided that he rather liked the centipede. He was obviously a rascal, but what a change it was to hear somebody laughing once in a while. He had never heard Aunt Sponge or Aunt Spiker laughing aloud in all the time that he had been with them. We really must get some sleep, the old green grasshopper said. We've got a tough day ahead of us tomorrow, so would you be kind enough, Miss Spider, to make the beds? And we'll pause there. That leaves us with chapter 13. I know there's a lot of tiny chapters in here, but lots of twists and turns in this book as well. Now, it's funny to hear in this story how they use so many descriptive words to explain that peach. And as he's entering, what a magical and mysterious place that is. The funny thing is, when I ordered this book, I ordered an extra copy for us here at home. And I ordered this book and I didn't realize it had a funny twist to it. This book, believe it or not, is scratch and sniff on the front. And so when you smell the peach on the front, it actually smells like peaches. They try to bring you right on in with James there as he goes into this ginormous peach and meets this whole crew of characters that we get a chance to meet in those chapters there. So we will continue on with these characters. We'll get to know more about them and why in the world they're in such a hurry to get to sleep. But we'll have to wait until tomorrow for that. I'll catch you up on some more chapters then. For now, I'll just remind you to keep checking for updates in our Google Classroom. I know we have a prize to talk about, and we have to make sure we submit our forms so we can find out which prize you would like to go for after our bingo game the other day. So don't forget to submit your form. Just one time though, please. One time for everyone. And we'll see which surprise, gets the most votes. Whichever one that is, I'll surprise you with next week. For now, I'll leave you with that and a reminder to look for moments where you can show caring and kindness to one another. Keep up the great work, my friends, and I'll see you all soon. Bye, guys.